Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reading chapter 4 in my book, The Thorn in My Flesh. This is the first book that I've written. If you haven't got to hear chapters 1 through 3, you might want to go back and watch those before you listen to this one. So we will begin. Chapter 4, The Will and the Wilderness. Not long after my honeymoon season with Jesus, life began to shift. My marriage had ended, and I moved with my daughter to Fort Smith, Arkansas. Everything familiar, the rhythms of church, the community, the comfort of routine, was left behind. At the time, it felt like chaos, but looking back now, I see that this season was part of God's process. He was beginning the deeper training that only happens when life feels uncertain, when control is stripped away, and when we must rely fully on Him. Arriving in a new city, I faced the reality of starting over. I had few friends or family nearby, and my daughter and I were essentially on our own. To make ends meet, I picked up gig jobs, often working 12-hour shifts for very little pay. I was exhausted and sick much of the time, and sure how we would make it. Life felt heavy, and my faith began to waver. I didn't understand why God had led me here, but He was drawing me out of comfort and into dependence. In my first year, I drifted spiritually. When I stumbled, shame hit hard, and I began avoiding God out of fear that I had disappointed Him. I told myself I needed a break, but deep down, I missed His presence. I busied myself to escape the emptiness, unaware that He was patiently waiting for me to return. Things in Fort Smith didn't get easier. My plans fell apart, and the pressure of providing alone became overwhelming. Many nights I collapsed into bed, body tired, but mind racing. I didn't realize then that this exhaustion was pulling me toward a breaking point, a place where only God could rebuild me. One afternoon, as I sat on the couch brainstorming how to make life work, I whispered to myself, I miss Jesus. I miss the Holy Spirit. The words broke something open inside me. It felt like the first crack in the wall I had built between us. Tears began to fall, and for the first time in months, I let myself feel the longing I had ignored. Then something extraordinary happened. I felt His presence so strongly that it filled the room. In an open vision, I saw Jesus sitting beside me, full of compassion and light. He spoke gently to my heart through the story of the Samaritan woman at the well, showing me how even through her mistakes, He loved her deeply and called her into purpose. I realized then that He was doing the same for me. His love wasn't withdrawn, it was waiting. That moment changed everything. The shame and fear that had kept me away began to lift. I realized that returning to God was never about perfection, it was about willingness. From that day forward, I began praying again, even if only for a few minutes at a time. Each prayer felt like a step toward healing. Over time, I overcame most of the habits that had distanced me from Him, except for one persistent struggle, a thorn that seemed impossible to remove. Sometimes it made me want to hide, but even in that weakness, I could sense His patience. I began to understand that His grace wasn't just covering me, it was teaching me. Soon after, God began speaking again through impressions and quiet words for others. One day, I felt led to pray for an employee at my daughter's afternoon school care. The Holy Spirit revealed she was struggling with depression and that her prayers were about to be answered. When I shared the message, she began to cry and told me I was the second person that day who had spoken the same word. In that moment, I knew God could still use me, even in my weakness. That encounter rekindled something inside me. I realized that even when I drifted, His calling never left. His love was not waiting for me to be perfect, it was pulling me back to purpose. I didn't need to have all the answers. I only needed to keep returning to the well. Reflective questions I have here. How have you experienced God's presence even when life felt overwhelming or lonely? What areas of struggle do you need to bring before Him, trusting His patience and love? Are there ways God is calling you to step into His purpose, even amidst challenges? Can you see how God might be using seasons of discomfort or change to prepare you for something greater? I hope you enjoyed chapter 4 today. Next time, I will see you, and I will be reading in chapter 5, and the title is The Car Became My Pulpit. See you all next time.